They say you never really know your kids until they've got something to gain from breaking your heart. I learned that lesson on Christmas Day, standing in my living room at 6:30 in the evening, staring at 16 untouched plates and wondering if I'd finally lost my mind. My name is Dean Harrow. I'm 42 years old, and I run a motorcycle customization garage on the south end of town where the buildings still have character and the rent doesn't require selling a kidney. I've got grease under my fingernails that won't wash out no matter how hard I scrub, a lower back that reminds me I'm not 20 anymore, and until about 3 weeks ago, I had a son I would have died for, past tense. We'll get to that. The house smelled like Christmas used to smell when I was a kid. Roasted turkey with herb butter, honey-glazed ham, garlic mashed potatoes, 3 kinds of stuffing, fresh-baked rolls, green bean casserole, cranberry sauce from scratch, sweet potato pie, apple pie, pecan pie, and a chocolate cake that took Marla 4 hours to decorate. The dining table was extended to its full length, with the extra leaf we only used for holidays, covered in my grandmother's lace tablecloth that we kept in tissue paper the rest of the year. 16 place settings, 16 champagne flutes, 16 folded napkins arranged like little swans because Marla watched a YouTube video and decided it would be classy. The Christmas tree lights twinkled in the corner. Bing Crosby crooned from the speakers. The whole scene looked like something out of a holiday catalog, the kind of picture-perfect moment that makes you believe in the magic of family gatherings and the goodness of human nature. Except nobody came. Not one person. I stood there with a glass of whiskey in my hand, watching the ice melt, trying to figure out at what point during the last 20 years I'd become such a complete idiot. Marla sat on the couch, her phone in her lap, her face carefully neutral. She's 36, 5 years younger than me, with dark hair she keeps in a practical bob and eyes that don't miss much. She's worked as a bookkeeper at Hammond Construction for 8 years, and she's got that particular kind of intelligence that most people underestimate because she doesn't feel the need to announce it every 5 minutes. She was wearing the green dress she'd bought specifically for tonight. Her makeup was perfect. She hadn't touched her plate. "They're not coming," she said quietly. "I can see that." "Dean." "I know." "No, I mean they were never planning to come." I looked at her. She held up her phone. The screen showed Instagram, Tyler's account. My son, 20 years old, grinning at the camera with a champagne flute raised in a toast. Behind him, a crowd of young people I didn't recognize, all dressed like they were attending a fashion show. The location tag read, Brooks' Parents' Estate. The caption said, "Only the best for our first Christmas as a married couple. Grateful for the people who actually matter." The people who actually matter. I read it 3 times to make sure I wasn't hallucinating. Quote 7, Marla said. Her voice was flat, which meant she was furious. Marla doesn't yell, she gets quiet. That's when you know you've screwed up. She swiped to another screenshot. A group chat. Brooke's friends. Brooke is Tyler's wife, 21 years old, blonde hair that costs more to maintain than my monthly grocery bill, and a smile that could sell poison to saints. She's what they call a lifestyle influencer, which as far as I can tell means she takes pictures of herself holding products and pretends she's not being paid to lie about them. The chat was full of messages from the last few days. Brooke. Can you believe he actually thinks we're going to his sad little dinner? Unknown contact. OMG, did you tell him you'd be there? Brooke. Tyler told him we'd bring like 14 people, lol. Unknown contact. Brutal. Brooke. He deserves it. Guy's pathetic. Always trying to stay relevant in Tyler's life. Like we need some grease monkey playing proud papa. Tyler's embarrassed by him. Unknown contact. Does he know you're not coming? Brooke. We're going to let him figure it out. Tyler wants him to suffer a bit. Teach him to stop begging for attention. I read it through once. Then again. Then I set my whiskey down very carefully on the coffee table because my hands were shaking and I didn't trust myself not to throw the glass through the TV. Quote 15. I asked. A quote 16. Quote 17. Quote 18 centier. Quote 19. Quote 20 baha. I sat down next to her. My chest felt tight, like someone had strapped a belt around my ribcage and was pulling it tighter every time I breathed. This wasn't just disappointment. This wasn't just being stood up. This was calculated, planned. They'd asked us to spend hundreds of dollars on a dinner for 16 people, knowing the whole time they'd never show up, just so they could laugh about it with their friends. Quote 21. I asked. Marla put her hand on mine. Quote 22. Quote 23. Quote 24. Quote 25. Quote 26. Quote 27. Quote 28. Quote 29. Quote 30. The worst part was that I did know. Deep down, I'd known for months that something was wrong. Tyler had been distant since he married Brooke last spring. The calls came less frequently. The visits stopped altogether. When I did see him, he looked uncomfortable, like he was counting the minutes until he could leave. I'd told myself it was normal. He was building his own life. He was busy with his social media business, whatever the hell that meant. He was newly married. He needed space. But it wasn't space he needed. It was distance from me. I picked up my phone and called him. It rang 4 times and went to voicemail. I tried again. Same thing. 3rd time, he picked up. Dad, I'm kind of busy right now. In the background, I could hear music and laughter. Someone shouted something about shots. Where are you? I asked. At a party. Why? We had plans tonight. Silence. Then, oh, right. Yeah, sorry, something came up. Yeah, Brooke's parents invited us over last minute and we couldn't say no. It's kind of a big deal. We made dinner for 16 people, Tyler. I mean, you didn't have to do that. You asked me to. Another pause. Did I? I don't really remember that. I could hear Brooke's voice in the background. Quote 42, quote 43, quote 44, quote 45. He hung up. I sat there staring at my phone like it might spontaneously combust. Marla leaned her head against my shoulder. Quote 46, quote 47, quote 48. She was right. I did know. But the thing I wanted to do involved driving to Brooke's parents' estate and dragging Tyler out of there by his hair, and that wasn't going to help anybody. So instead, I did what any rational adult would do. I got in my truck and drove over there anyway. The roads were icy. We'd gotten 6 inches of snow the day before, and the plows hadn't made it to the residential streets yet. My truck handled it fine. I've been driving in snow since I was 16, but about halfway there, some idiot in a BMW came around a corner too fast and nearly took out my front end. I swerved, hit a patch of ice, and spent 5 terrifying seconds fishtailing across both lanes before I got control back. My heart was hammering. My hands were white-knuckled on the steering wheel. The BMW was long gone, taillights disappearing into the darkness. I sat there at the side of the road, engine running, heat blasting, trying to remember why I'd thought this was a good idea. Because you're angry, said a voice in my head. Because your son humiliated you and you want him to explain why. I pulled back onto the road and kept driving. Brooke's parents lived in the kind of neighborhood where every house looked like it belonged in a magazine spread, and every lawn was exactly the same shade of green in summer. The houses were massive, all stone and glass and carefully maintained landscaping. Christmas lights were strung with professional precision. BMWs and Mercedes lined the driveways. I felt out of place the moment I turned onto their street. Tyler's car was parked near the front of the Hanley estate. I recognized it by the custom paint job I'd helped him apply 2 years ago, back when we still did things together. I pulled in behind it and sat there for a moment, trying to figure out what I was going to say. Through the front windows, I could see people moving around inside. Music thumped through the walls. I got out of the truck and walked up the driveway, my boots crunching in the snow. I rang the doorbell. A woman in her 50s answered, dressed in a cream-colored pantsuit that probably cost more than my mortgage payment. She looked me up and down with barely concealed distaste. Can I help you? I'm Dean Harrow, Tyler's father. Is he here? This is a private party. I know. I just need to talk to my son for a minute. She hesitated, then called over her shoulder. Gerald, there's someone here for Tyler. A man appeared behind her. Late 50s, silver hair, expensive watch. He looked at me the way you'd look at something you found stuck to your shoe. Quote 54, the woman said. Quote 55. Quote 56. Quote 57, quote 58. Gerald glanced back into the house, then sighed like I was the most inconvenient thing that had happened to him all day. Quote 59. He disappeared inside. I stood on the porch, snow falling around me, feeling like an idiot. Through the windows, I could see Tyler talking to a group of people, champagne glass in hand, laughing at something someone said. He looked happy, relaxed. Nothing like the distant, uncomfortable version of himself he showed me. Then Gerald returned with Tyler in tow. Tyler stepped outside and closed the door behind him. Quote 60 quote and quote 61 quote 62 what quote and 63. He glanced back at the door, then ran a hand through his hair. Quote 64 quote 65 quote 66 quote 67. He shifted his weight uncomfortably. Quote 68 quote 69 1 take quote 70 we quote 71 take quote 72. This wasn't my son. This was someone wearing his face, someone who'd learned to talk to me like I was an irritating stranger who wouldn't take a hint. "Did Brooke tell you to do this?" I asked. His expression hardened. "Don't bring Brooke into this. She's mocking me on social media, calling me pathetic, saying I'm begging for attention. That's not, look, you don't understand the pressure we're under. Brooke's trying to build a brand. Every post matters. Every connection matters. We can't afford to look like we're still tied to what?" He didn't answer. Quote 78. Quote 79. There it was. The truth, laid out clean and simple. I didn't fit the image. I was the embarrassing father with the blue-collar job and the working-class neighborhood. I took a step toward him. He took a step back. "You're ashamed of me," I said. "That's not—" "Yes, it is. You're ashamed of me because I work with my hands, because I don't have money, because I'm not part of Brooke's little country club world." "Dad, you're making a scene." "A scene? You humiliated me. You made me think you wanted to spend Christmas with me, and then you laughed about it with your friends. You called me pathetic." "I never said that." "Brooke did, and you stood there and let her." The door opened behind Tyler. Brooke stepped out, all blonde hair and perfect makeup and a dress that probably cost more than I made in a week. She put her hand on Tyler's arm and gave me a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Dean, hi. What are you doing here?" "Talking to my son." "At a private party? That's kind of inappropriate, don't you think?" "What's inappropriate is lying to me about Christmas dinner." She laughed. Actually laughed. "Oh my God, you're still upset about that? It was just a miscommunication." "It wasn't a miscommunication. It was deliberate." "Okay, Dean, I think you need to leave now. You're embarrassing Tyler." "I'm embarrassing him?" "Yes, you are. This is exactly the kind of behavior we've been trying to distance ourselves from. You can't just show up at people's houses and start making accusations." I looked at Tyler. "You're going to let her talk to me like this?" He wouldn't meet my eyes. Quote 97. Quote 98. Quote 99. Behind them, the door opened wider. Brooke's friends crowded in the doorway, phones out, recording. Someone giggled. Someone else whispered something I couldn't quite hear. This was entertainment to them. I was the crazy old man making a scene at the fancy party. Tyler stepped closer to me, his voice low. Quote 100. I stared at him. This was my son, the boy I'd raised, the kid I'd taught to ride a bike, the teenager I'd bailed out of trouble more times than I could count, the young man I'd helped move into his first apartment, and he was threatening to call the police on me. I stepped back. Quote 101. I said quietly. Quote 102. I turned and walked back to my truck, snow crunching under my boots, my chest tight with something I couldn't name. Humiliation, rage, grief, all of it at once, swirling together into something that tasted like battery acid. I got in the truck and drove home. Marla was waiting on the couch. She took one look at my face and said, "What happened?" I told her everything. The doorbell, Gerald and his wife, Tyler on the porch, Brooke's smile, the phone's recording. When I finished, Marla was quiet for a long moment. Then she got up, walked to the kitchen, and poured herself a glass of wine. She drank half of it in one swallow. Quote 112, she said. Quote 125. She turned to look at me. Her eyes were cold, the kind of cold that meant someone was about to have a very bad day. Quote 1 she said quietly. Quote 107. As the story unfolds, hit the hype button, like, subscribe, and write in the comments. Would you forgive them or walk away? Marla is smarter than me. I've known this since the day I met her 12 years ago at a hardware store where she was arguing with the clerk about the difference between wood screws and drywall screws. She was right. The clerk was wrong. I fell in love somewhere between her explanation of thread pitch and her withering assessment of his training program. She's also methodical. When she decides to do something, she doesn't do it halfway. She makes lists. She researches. She plans every detail down to the minute, and then she executes with the kind of precision that makes you wonder if she missed her calling as a general or a surgeon. So when she said we were going to make Tyler and Brooke's lives unforgettable, I knew she meant it. The next morning, I woke up to find her at the kitchen table, laptop open, notebook beside her, 3 empty coffee cups forming a semicircle around her workspace. She'd been up all night. I could tell by the dark circles under her eyes and the manic energy radiating off her like heat. "What are you doing?" I asked. "Research." "Into what?" Tyler and Brooke's finances, their social media presence, their business arrangements, everything. I poured myself coffee and sat down across from her. And what did you find? She turned the laptop so I could see the screen. It showed Tyler's Instagram account, but not the public feed. This was some kind of analytics dashboard I'd never seen before. Did you know Tyler has 43,000 followers? She asked. No. And that 70% of them are fake accounts? What? He bought followers. There are companies that sell them. You pay a few $100s and they give you thousands of bot accounts that follow you and like your posts to make you look more popular than you are. Why would he do that? Because his entire business model depends on appearing successful. He sells courses on how to build a lifestyle brand. People pay him money to learn his secrets. But his secrets are fake. He doesn't have a successful brand. He has debt and lies. She clicked to another tab. This one showed a spreadsheet with columns of numbers. He owes money to at least 7 different people. Small amounts, mostly. 1,000 here, 1,500 there. But it adds up. I'm estimating around 20,000 in personal loans from friends and acquaintances. How do you know that? Public records. Small claims court filings. Venmo transactions. Social media posts where people are tagging him asking about money. You'd be amazed what people put online. She clicked to another tab. Brooke's Instagram. Quote, 123. Quote, 124. Quote, what country? Someone copy the trend process was telling me. Look quote, 126. Quote, 127. Look quote, 128. Quote, I'll vote on 29 now. 130. Quote, 131. I almost dropped my coffee cup. Quote, quote, can you? Talk quote, 133. Quote, 134. Shut to go to 35. I sat back in my chair, my mind racing. Tyler had tried to use my business as collateral. The garage I'd built from nothing, that I'd poured 15 years of my life into, that represented everything I'd worked for. He'd tried to risk it all without telling me. Quote 136, I said. Marla pulled up a PDF. There was my signature, or something close to it. Not perfect, but close enough that someone who wasn't looking carefully might miss it. The loan amount was $38,000. The purpose was listed as business expansion. How did you get this? I asked. I have a friend who works at the bank. She pulled the records for me. That's illegal. So is fraud. Fair point. I stared at the screen, at my forged signature, at the casual way Tyler had tried to steal from me. The anger I'd felt last night was nothing compared to what I felt now. This wasn't just humiliation or betrayal. This was my son actively trying to destroy what I'd built. Quote 142, I said quietly. Marla smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. Yes, we are. The plan came together over the next week. Marla did most of the strategic work. I handled the physical side of things, which mostly meant visiting people Tyler owed money to and convincing them to give me copies of their loan agreements. The first guy was easy. His name was Rick Chen, and he ran a print shop downtown. Tyler owed him $1,200 for business cards and promotional materials he'd never paid for. Rick was happy to give me copies of everything once I explained who I was and what I was trying to do. Quote, 144. Rick said, handing me a folder full of invoices and text messages. Quote, 145. Quote, 46. Quote, 47. Quote, 48. The second guy was harder. His name was Marcus Webb, and he was built like he could bench press my truck. He lived in a part of town where people minded their own business and didn't ask questions, and he made his money in ways that probably weren't entirely legal. I found him at a bar on the south side, playing pool with 3 other guys who looked like they'd seen the inside of a jail cell more than once. When I told him why I was there, he laughed. Tyler's your kid? That little punk owes me $5,000. I know. I want to help you get it back. How you planning to do that? I'm working on a plan, but I need documentation. Texts, emails, anything that proves he owes you money. Marcus leaned against his pool cue and studied me. You know your kid tried to run a scam on me? Said he could triple my investment in 6 months if I funded his new venture. I'm not an idiot, but I gave him a shot because a mutual friend vouched for him. Big mistake. I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't get me my $5,000 back. No, but if you help me, I can make sure Tyler pays for what he did. I'm listening. I explained the plan. Not all of it, just enough to let him know I was serious. When I finished, Marcus nodded slowly. Okay, I'll help. But if this doesn't work, I'm coming after him my way. You understand? I understand. He pulled out his phone and started scrolling through messages. He stopped answering my calls 3 weeks ago. Last thing he said was that he'd have the money by New Year. That's next week. He's not going to pay you. Yeah, I figured. Here, I'll send you screenshots. My phone buzzed as the messages came through. I scrolled through them quickly. Tyler's promises. Marcus's increasingly frustrated responses. The final message from Tyler saying he'd have the money soon, followed by radio silence. Quote 163, I said. Quote 164, Marcus said. Quote 165. I left the bar and sat in my truck for a minute, staring at the screenshots on my phone. This was what Tyler had become, a con artist, a liar, someone who borrowed money from dangerous people and then disappeared. The thing was, I wasn't even surprised anymore. The third visit was the one that changed everything. His name was Paul Anderson, and he owned a used car dealership on the edge of town. Tyler owed him $8,000 for a car he'd bought and never made payments on. Paul had eventually repossessed the car, but Tyler had done enough damage to it that it wasn't worth the original loan amount anymore. I found Paul in his office, a small room at the back of the lot that smelled like cigarettes and desperation. He was in his 60s, overweight, with the kind of face that had seen too much disappointment to be surprised by anything anymore. Dean Harrow, I said, shaking his hand. I'm Tyler's father. Lucky you. I'm here about the money he owes you. Paul leaned back in his chair, which creaked ominously under his weight. That ship has sailed. I repoed the car. I'm out maybe $2,000 after I sell it for parts, but I've written it off as a loss. What if I told you there was a way to get your money back? I'd say you're wasting your time. He forged my signature on a loan application, used my business as collateral. That got his attention. No shit? No shit. I have documentation. I'm building a case against him. Paul was quiet for a moment, then reached into a drawer and pulled out a file folder. He did the same thing to me, used some woman's name as a reference, said she'd co-sign the loan if he defaulted. I called her after he stopped paying. She'd never heard of him. Do you have her contact information? Yeah. I'll write it down for you. He scribbled a name and number on a post-it note and handed it to me. Jennifer Cortez. I didn't recognize the name. Quote 179, I said. Quote 180. Paul said. Quote 181. Quote 182. I left the dealership with the post-it note in my pocket and a sick feeling in my stomach. How many people had Tyler scammed? How many lives had he disrupted with his lies? That evening I called Jennifer Cortez. She answered on the third ring. Ponemos under quote 183, quote 184, silence. Then there were quote 185, quote 186, quote 187, quote 188, another silence, quote 189, say to quote 190, to quote 191, or quote 192, not your side. Quote 193 on the minute, quote 194, did quote 195, said quote 196, and quote 197, quote 198, the quote 199, the quote new talen, the quote MT1, then I quote in quote new, I quote 103, can I'm quoting 2 and 4. That she laughed a while, but there was no humor in it. So quote 205. We talked for another 10 minutes. She gave me copies of the loan documents and the text messages between her and Tyler. By the time we hung up, I had enough evidence to bury him, but I wanted more. That night, Marla and I sat at the kitchen table and laid out everything we'd gathered. Loan documents, screenshots, bank records, a paper trail of lies and fraud that stretched back at least 3 years. He's been doing this since before he met Brooke, Marla said. This isn't new behavior, it's a pattern. How did I not see it? Because you wanted to believe he was better than this. We all do that with the people we love. I looked at the documents spread across the table. What's the next step? We find out what Tyler and Brooke are planning for New Year. Whatever it is, that's where we hit them. How do you know they're planning something? She showed me her phone. Brooke's Instagram story, a countdown graphic that said, "You quote 23, quote 214, Marla said, quote 215, quote 216. She smiled. Quote 217. The next day, Marla created a fake Instagram account, not under her real name, but as someone named Ashley Richardson, a lifestyle blogger from California. She used stock photos of a random blonde woman and spent hours crafting a believable profile. Fake followers, fake posts, fake everything. Then she started commenting on Brooke's posts, compliments, questions, the kind of engagement that influencers crave. Within 2 days, Brooke followed her back. Within 3, they were DMing. Marla showed me the conversation. Ashley, OMG, your New Year party looks amazing. How do you plan something like that? Brooke, thank you. It's so much work, but so worth it. We're renting this gorgeous mansion in the hills, catering, open bar, professional photographer, the works. Ashley, that sounds incredible. How many people are you inviting? Brooke, around 150. We want it to be the event everyone talks about. Ashley, goals. Can I ask who's catering? I'm always looking for vendors. Brooke sent her the name of the catering company. Marla called them the next day, pretending to be Brooke's assistant, and got a copy of the contract. The party was costing $32,000. Tyler and Brooke had put down a deposit of $5,000 and were supposed to pay the rest before the event. Quote 223. I said. Quote 224. Quote 225. Quote 226. The answer came 3 days later when Marla hacked into Tyler's email account. Not through anything sophisticated, she just guessed his password based on information from his social media. It was his birthday and Brooke's name. Idiot. In his sent folder, we found an email to a loan officer at a different bank. Tyler had applied for another loan, this time for $45,000. And this time, he'd used my garage as collateral again. But it was worse than that. This time, he'd also forged Marla's signature. We stared at the email in silence. He's not just stealing from you, Marla said quietly. He's stealing from both of us. When did he send this? 3 days ago. The loan officer is supposed to call him tomorrow with a decision. We have to stop it. We will, but first, I want to see how far he'll go. Marla, trust me, we're going to let this play out just long enough to make sure we have everything we need to destroy him. I didn't like it, but I trusted her, so we waited. The loan officer called Tyler the next day. Marla had set up a recording app on my phone, and we listened as the officer left a voicemail saying the loan had been approved pending verification of the collateral. Tyler called back an hour later. We listened to the conversation in real time. Quote 235, quote 236, quote 237, quote 238, quote 239. He hung up. Marla looked at me. Quote 240, quote 241, quote 242. I thought about it. Quote 243, quote 224, quote 245, and quote 246. She was right. 2 days later, I got an alert from the security system at the garage. Someone had triggered the motion sensors at 3 a.m. I pulled up the camera feed on my phone. There was Tyler trying to pick the lock on my office door. I watched him for a minute, fumbling with a lockpick kit he'd probably bought on Amazon, completely incompetent. After 5 minutes, he gave up and smashed the window with a tire iron. The alarm started screaming. Tyler climbed through the window, ran to my desk, and started going through drawers. He found the safe behind the framed picture on the wall. He spent another 5 minutes trying to crack it, then gave up and ran when he heard sirens in the distance. The police showed up 10 minutes later. I was already there, standing in my office, looking at the broken window and the crowbar Tyler had left behind. Any idea who did this? The officer asked. Yeah, I said. My son. The officer raised his eyebrows. You sure about that? I showed him the camera footage. Tyler's face was clear as day. Quote 251. I thought about it. Part of me wanted to say yes. Send Tyler to jail, let him face the consequences of what he'd done. But that wasn't the revenge Marla and I had planned. That was too easy, too clean. Quote 252, I said. Quote 253. The officer nodded and wrote up the report. After he left, I stood in my office and looked at the broken window, the scattered papers, the scratches around my safe. Tyler had come here to steal from me. His own father, the man who'd raised him, supported him, loved him unconditionally for 20 years. And he'd failed, but he didn't know that yet. I called Marla. We need to move up the timeline. Why? I told her about the break-in. Okay, she said. Then we hit them at the party. We've got everything we need. Are you sure? I'm sure. By the time we're done with them, they'll wish they'd never heard our names. 3 months after Tyler's sentencing, I got a letter from him. It arrived on a Tuesday, addressed in handwriting I barely recognized. Prison had changed his penmanship, made it smaller, more careful. I held the envelope for a full minute before opening it. Quote 260. I read the letter 3 times, then folded it carefully and put it back in the envelope. Marla found me in the kitchen, staring at the envelope on the counter. Quote 261. She asked. Quote 262. Quote 263. I handed it to her. She read it silently, her expression unreadable. Quote 264. She said finally. Quote 265. Quote 266, jaket, quote, 267, iki, quote, jak 268. But that wasn't quite true. I did owe him something, not forgiveness necessarily, but acknowledgement. He'd written to me. He'd taken the first step toward making things right. Ignoring that felt cruel. I didn't write back that day, or the next, or the week after that. But I kept the letter. In April, Rick Chen came by the garage. He'd finally gotten his $1,200 back through the restitution program. He wanted to thank me personally. I never thought I'd see that money again, he said, shaking my hand. What you did, standing up to your own kid like that took guts? I didn't do it for you. I know, you did it because it was right. Still, I appreciate it. After he left, I sat in my office and wondered if what I'd done really was right. Tyler was in prison, his life was on pause, his future was uncertain, all because I'd refused to protect him from the consequences of his actions. Was that justice, or was it revenge? I didn't have an answer. More letters came from Tyler, one every couple of weeks. He wrote about prison life, about the classes he was taking, about the counseling sessions where he had to confront what he'd done. He never asked me to help him get out early, never asked for money or favors, just wrote to tell me he was thinking about me, that he was trying to be better. I read every letter. I kept them all in a folder in my desk drawer, but I didn't write back. Marla asked me about it one night over dinner. Quote, 273, quote, 274, quote, 275, quote, 276, quote, 277, quote, 278. She reached across the table and took my hand. Quote, 279, quote. That night, I pulled out all of Tyler's letters and read them in order. Watching his progression from desperate apologies to genuine self-reflection was strange. He was changing, or at least he was trying to change. Whether it would stick after he got out was anyone's guess. I got out a piece of paper and started writing. Quote, 201. I sealed the letter and mailed it the next morning before I could change my mind. Tyler's response came 2 weeks later. Dad, thank you. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you for not giving up on me completely. Tyler. After that, we wrote to each other occasionally. Not long letters, not deep conversations, just brief updates. He told me about the books he was reading, the jobs he was doing in the prison workshop. I told him about the garage, about Marla, about the normal, boring details of life. It wasn't much, but it was something. By September, the whole ordeal had started to feel like something that had happened to someone else. The videos were still online, but nobody watched them anymore. Tyler and Brooke had been replaced by newer scandals, fresher drama. Life moved on. I thought about Tyler less. The anger had faded into something duller, more manageable. Not forgiveness exactly, but acceptance. This was what had happened. This was where we were now. And maybe that was okay. Marla and I took a vacation in October. Just a long weekend up in the mountains, no phones, no internet, no reminders of the chaos from last year. We hiked during the day and sat by the fire at night. Not talking much, just being together. Quote 283. She asked me one evening. It a quote 2 hours. It a quote 285. Quote 286. Quote 287. Quote 288. She smiled. Quote 289. Quote 290. Yedito. Quote 291. Quote 292. Quote 23. I thought about it. Quote 294. A quote 295. The quote 296. Quote 297. We sat there in the firelight, holding hands, and I realized she was right. We had won. Not in some dramatic, movie-ending way, but in the quiet, unglamorous way that real life offers. We'd survived. We'd stayed together. We'd refused to let someone else's choices destroy our relationship. That was enough. When we got back from vacation, there was another letter from Tyler waiting. This one was different, longer, more thoughtful. He wrote about his plans for when he got out. He wanted to get a real job, something honest, maybe go back to school. He wanted to pay back everyone he'd hurt, even if it took years. He wanted to prove that he could be the person he should have been all along. And he wanted to know if, when he got out, there was any chance I might consider letting him work at the garage. I read that line 3 times. Work at the garage. The place he'd been embarrassed by. The job he'd considered beneath him. Now he was asking if he could come back to it. I didn't answer right away. I needed to think about it. Needed to figure out if I could handle having him around every day, seeing his face, being reminded of everything that had happened. After a week, I wrote back. Tyler, when you get out, come see me. We'll talk about the garage. I'm not making any promises, but I'm willing to have a conversation. That's the best I can do right now. Dad. His response was immediate. That's all I'm asking for. Thank you, Dad. Really. Thank you. I put the letter with the others and closed the drawer. The garage was busy that fall. More work than I could handle alone. I hired a kid fresh out of trade school to help with oil changes and tire rotations. His name was Marcus, and he reminded me a little of Tyler before everything went wrong. Eager, hardworking, grateful for the opportunity. He asked me one day why I didn't have any family photos in the office. Quote 300. I said, quote 301, quote 302, quote 303, quote 304. I looked at him. He'll quote 305, quote 306, quote 307, quote 308, quote 309, that's in quote 310, but quote 311. Marcus was quiet for a moment. Quote 312 when quote 331, and I'm quote 3 bump core, I'm quote 315, even on quote 316, quote 317, and quote 318, and quote 319. But even as I said it, I wasn't sure that's what I believed anymore. Tyler had burned me. But he was also trying to rebuild. And maybe that deserved something. Not forgiveness, not immediately, but a chance. A small one. We'd see. Christmas came and went without drama. Marla and I had a quiet dinner at home, just the two of us. No guests, no big production. Just turkey and wine and music playing softly in the background. Better than last year, Marla said, raising her glass. Anything's better than last year. Are you thinking about him? Tyler? Yeah, always thinking about him. Do you miss him? I miss who I thought he was? That's not the same thing. I know. We ate in comfortable silence. That night, I wrote Tyler a Christmas card. Just a simple Merry Christmas and a picture of the tree. Nothing sentimental, nothing dramatic. Just acknowledgement that I was thinking of him, even if I didn't know how to feel about it yet. His response came in January. Quote 329. 2 months. I had 2 months to decide if I was ready to see him. To figure out if I could look him in the eye and not see the person who'd tried to destroy me. To determine if there was any part of our relationship worth salvaging. It wasn't enough time, but it was what I had. Tyler was released on March 15th. I didn't go to pick him up. I told myself it was because I was busy at the garage. But the truth was, I wasn't ready to see him yet. Wasn't ready to face whatever version of my son prison had created. He called me that afternoon from a payphone somewhere downtown. Dad, it's me. His voice sounded different, rougher, like prison had scraped something smooth off of him and left the raw parts exposed. Tyler, you out? Yeah, just finished processing. They gave me $47 and a bus pass. Where are you staying? Halfway house on Jefferson Street. It's part of my parole agreement. I have to stay there for 6 months. Okay. Silence stretched between us. I could hear traffic in the background on his end, the mechanical voice of the payphone telling him to insert more money. I'd like to see you, he said, if that's okay. When? Whenever you're free. I don't want to impose. How about tomorrow? Come by the garage around noon. We'll get lunch. Really? Really. Okay, yeah, I'll be there. Thanks, Dad. He hung up before I could respond. I sat in my office for a long time after that call, trying to figure out what I was going to say to him. 3 years had passed since that New Year's Eve party. 3 years of letters and slow, painful progress toward something that might eventually resemble forgiveness. But writing letters was different from sitting across from someone and having an actual conversation. Marla came by the garage that evening after work. She always did that now, stopped in to say hello, to check on me, to make sure I was eating something other than vending machine food for lunch. Quote 344. I told her. Quote 35. Quote 36. Well, quote 35. Quote 348. She laughed. Quote 349. The like with quote 350. Oh, quote 351. And quote 352. That a quote 3543. She was right. She was always right. The next day, I spent the morning on edge, checking the clock every 10 minutes, jumping every time the door opened. At 11:30, Marcus noticed. Quote 354. Quote 355. Quote 356. Board quote 357. Marcus raised his eyebrows. Quote 358. Quote Ederhammer quote 360. Quote 361. At 12:03, Tyler walked through the door. I barely recognized him. He'd lost weight. A lot of weight. His face was leaner, harder, with new lines around his eyes and mouth that hadn't been there before. His hair was cut short, almost military style. He was wearing jeans and a plain t-shirt, both too big for his frame, probably from a donation center, but it was his eyes that got me. They were different, older, sadder. The cocky confidence was gone, replaced by something wary and uncertain. Quote 362, he said quietly. Quote 363. We stood there looking at each other for a moment that felt like an hour. Then I said, shut quote 364. Quote 365. We walked to a diner 3 blocks away. Neither of us spoke on the way there. The silence wasn't comfortable, but it wasn't hostile either. It was just silence. Inside the diner, we slid into a booth by the window. The waitress brought menus and water. Tyler ordered a burger and fries. I got the same. Quote 366. I asked. Quote 367. Quote a 368. Quote 369. More silence. Tyler fidgeted with his napkin, folding and unfolding it. Quote 70. I said. Quote letter 71. He looked up. Quote 372. Quote 373. They quote 374. Quote 375. Quote 370. Quote 387. He met my eyes. Quote 378. The food arrived. We ate in silence for a few minutes. On to quote 379. Tyler said suddenly. Quote 380. Quote 381. And quote 382. A quote 383. And quote 384. He shrugged. A quote 385. Said quote 386. And quote 387. Need a quote 388. The quote 389. Said quote 390. His eyes got shiny. He looked away quickly. Quote 391. Quote 392. Quote 393. Quote 394. And to quote 395. We finished our meal. Tyler told me about the job training program he was enrolled in, about the classes he had to take as part of his parole. He talked about wanting to get certified as a mechanic, maybe work in an auto shop somewhere. I said, quote, 396? He asked. Quote, 397? I was quiet for a long moment. Quote, 398. Quote, 319. Quote, 400. Quote, 401. We walked back to the garage. Before Tyler left, he turned to me. Quote, code 2. Quote, 403. He nodded and walked away. I watched him go, this stranger wearing my son's face, and wondered if we'd ever get back to something resembling a normal father-son relationship. Probably not. But maybe we could build something new, something honest. That would be enough. Over the next few weeks, Tyler and I had lunch every Thursday. He told me about his life in the halfway house, about the men he lived with, about the daily struggle to stay positive when everything felt impossible. I told him about the garage, about Marcus, about the mundane details of a life he'd once considered beneath him. Slowly, carefully, we started to rebuild. In April, I decided to let Tyler shadow me at the garage one day a week. Just watching, learning, not touching anything expensive. Marcus was skeptical at first. You sure about this, boss? What if he steals something? Then I'll deal with it. But I don't think he will. Why not? Because he knows this is his last chance. If he screws up now, there's no coming back from it. Tyler showed up at 7 in the morning every Wednesday, eager to learn. He asked questions. He took notes. He didn't complain when I gave him the grunt work, cleaning tools, organizing parts, sweeping the floor. Quote 408. He asked one day, would a quote 409, which has a quote 410, would a quote 411, would a quote 412, quote 113. He laughed. It was the first time I'd heard him laugh since before everything fell apart. It sounded genuine. By June, I'd taught him how to do basic maintenance, oil changes, tire rotations, brake pad replacements. He was good with his hands, better than I expected. He had a natural feel for machinery, an intuition about how things fit together. Quote 414. I told him one day. Quote 415. Quote 416. Quote 417. Quote 418. In July, Tyler's 6 months at the halfway house ended. He was allowed to get his own apartment, but he didn't have money for a deposit or first month's rent. I offered to help. I can't take your money, he said. It's not a gift, it's a loan. You'll pay me back. Dad, you'll pay me back, I repeated. Interest-free whenever you can afford it. But right now, you need a place to live, and I'm offering to help. Take it. He took it. I co-signed his lease on a small studio apartment near the garage. Nothing fancy. Just a room with a bathroom and a kitchenette. But it was his. The day he moved in, I helped him carry his few possessions up the stairs. A duffel bag of clothes, a box of books. That was it. Everything he owned fit in my truck. "This is pathetic," he said, looking around the empty apartment. "This is a fresh start." "It doesn't feel fresh. It feels like I'm starting from zero." "You are starting from zero, that's the point. You get to rebuild however you want." "What if I mess it up again?" "Then you mess it up, but at least you tried." He nodded slowly. "Thanks, Dad, for everything. I know I keep saying it, but I mean it." "I know you do." By August, Tyler had completed his job training program and gotten his mechanic certification. I hired him officially, part-time, to work at the garage 3 days a week. Marcus was still skeptical, but he accepted it. "Just don't make me regret this," Marcus told Tyler on his first official day. "I won't. I'm serious. Your dad's a good guy. He deserves better than what you put him through." "I know, and I'm trying to be better." "Trying isn't enough. You have to actually do it." "Then I'll do it." They worked together grudgingly at first, Marcus watching Tyler like a hawk, waiting for him to screw up. But Tyler didn't screw up. He showed up on time. He did the work without complaining. He was respectful to customers, careful with their vehicles, honest about what needed to be fixed and what could wait. After a month, Marcus pulled me aside. Quote 438. Quote 439. Quote 443. Quote 441. In September, I got a call from Sharon Kemp at the DA's office. "Mr. Harrow, I wanted to let you know that Tyler has successfully completed his first year of parole. His counselor says he's making excellent progress." "That's good to hear?" "It is. I also wanted to apologize." "For what?" "For pushing you to be harder on him during the trial. I thought maximum punishment was the answer, but I'm seeing now that rehabilitation can work, if the person is willing to put in the effort. Your son is putting in the effort. He's trying. That's all any of us can do. Anyway, I thought you should know. Tyler's doing well. You should be proud." After we hung up, I sat in my office thinking about that word. Proud. Was I proud of Tyler? Not yet, but maybe someday. That night, I told Marla about the call. "See," she said, "I told you he could change." "You were right. You're always right." "I know. It's my best quality." "One of many." She kissed me. "You did good, Dean. You gave him a second chance, and he's making the most of it. That takes courage." "It doesn't feel courageous. It feels terrifying." "Same thing." Christmas came again. The second Christmas since that terrible night. Tyler asked if he could come over for dinner. Marla and I talked about it. "Are you ready for that?" she asked. "I don't know, but I think we should try." "Okay, but just him. No drama, no big production. Just a quiet family dinner." "Agreed." Tyler showed up at 6 with a bottle of wine and a nervous smile. "I know wine's not much," he said, "but I didn't know what else to bring." "Wine's perfect," Marla said, taking it from him. We ate turkey and stuffing and pie. We talked about normal things, Tyler's job, the garage, Marcus, the weather. Nothing heavy, nothing painful, just normal family conversation. It was nice. At the end of the night, as Tyler was leaving, he hugged me, just a quick, awkward hug. "Merry Christmas, Dad." "Merry Christmas, Tyler." After he left, Marla said, "That was good, really good." "Yeah, it was." "Are you happy?" "Getting there." "Me too." We cleaned up the dishes together, and for the first time in 3 years, I felt something close to peace.